Well, welcome to everybody. I, uh, I'm assuming you're still seeing my screen?
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
All right. The main focus is going to be on the use of self, but in relation to working with disadvantaged families. The use of self, from my perspective, is something that is basic and essential to therapy and counseling of all sorts. It's right at the very heart of the whole process of doing therapy. Therapy is a human experience. It's a relationship between us and the families and the individuals that we work with. We use the medium of our relationship in order to do the technical work of therapy or counseling, which essentially has to do with forming relationships, which has to do with assessments, which has to do with making interventions with people. All of that is done through the medium of the therapy that we do, of the relationship, I should say. In working with disadvantaged families, poor families, very often minority families, there are special challenges, and that's what I want to emphasize here. And there are reasons why it's special. For one, more often than not, the families, by definition, are families that are dealing with devastating life circumstances. And the families present to us not just a single issue to be addressed, but they often present us with a structure that is broken in ways that make it very difficult for them to cope with life's challenges. The families themselves are also normally coming from social environments that in and of themselves are broken, that in and of themselves lack the resources that other families may have. And finally, the third piece of the challenge in relating and working with these families is that there is, we normally see a gap between ourselves and the families themselves. And what do I mean by the gap? The gap I'm talking about is very often a difference in ethnic background, racial background, cultural background, and life experience. And even with, when it comes to therapists or counselors who have similar ethnic, racial, cultural backgrounds, the current life experience of the family and the counselor is often, more often than not, also quite different. So that even if we can identify with them in terms of race and culture, and even if we came from ourselves from a different disadvantaged background, we are usually in a situation where we're no longer in that experience that the family is having right now, of having particular social economic difficulties that are complicating their ability to manage the issues and challenges of life. Let me go on to the next slide. Okay. The here I'm what I'm speaking to here is that today's therapy is a therapy that uh, is um, is immediate. It's real. Uh, we're dealing with our clients face to face and in a very personal way. I'm just going to read this here. With the poor, there's a greater challenge to relationship because of distrust in clients and differences between therapists and clients in ethnicity, spirituality, and life circumstances. Why do I bring up distrust? Clients in these circumstances are uh, more often than not, they have dealt with all sorts of agencies and all sorts of professionals. And from my experience, they have been disappointed. They've been let down. Their needs have not been met. They've been frustrated. And so they enter the relationships with us not feeling quite insecure that we can really meet their needs. And so that immediately forms a barrier between us and them. Okay? The second point here about differences, that I've already spoken to, which is that in today's therapy, we're dealing with clients face to face. We have to form a relationship with them immediately. We have to connect with them immediately, be able to communicate with them, relate to them, so that we can offer them what we have in a way that they can receive it and make use of it. The differences in ethnicity, in cultural background, in spirituality, our religions, our life circumstances, all of these form barriers to that kind of communication and that kind of connection. So there is a special challenge there. Number two, greater social complexity. With the poor, the greater disruption, there is a greater disruption of family and community structure. What do I mean by that in particular? Well, when we're working with families that come from middle class, upper middle class, we're usually seeing families that have a more functional organization and structure to them, where there is a sense of who's in charge of the family, what are the responsibilities in the families, what roles people have in the families, and when they bring up issues in therapy, they tend to be more discrete issues. Okay? And we work with those issues in the context of a family that has a structure that is relatively functional. What we're often dealing with disadvantaged families are families where the basic structure of the family is can be quite chaotic. You know, very often single-parent families where there is one parent and there may be other adults that may come in as partners to that particular parent, and it may be a series of partners may be coming in. We're often dealing with families where we don't have a stable set of people that we can count on to meet the issues that the family is confronting. We often are also dealing with families that are living in communities where there are all sorts of problems going on, schools that are not functioning well, hospitals that are not responsive to the local population, um, uh, the justice system, which may well be at war with the people living in the community, so that we can't take for granted that those community resources are immediately available and accessible to the family. So that's a real challenge. In terms of spirituality, um, with the poor, as I say here, despair challenges our ability to speak to possibility and purpose. We're going to be talking about doing work with families, building on the positive, building on their strengths. Well, when people have met failure after failure in their lives, they very often really do not expect that things will change. They would like things to change, but the likelihood in their minds that those things are really going to change is very low. So that then we have to bring to the relationship with them a sense that something can be done that has not been done in the past. Okay, bottom line, okay, is that there is a greater need for use of self, that we as therapists and counselors must be much more active and take more responsibility for what we bring to this process than a therapist in another situation where a family comes with more resources, where there's a more easy partnership in the process. You and I, working with these families, have to get very involved. And the more involved we get personally, the more we need to be aware of what we personally are bringing into the relationship and the work with those families. What I'd like to do, I think if we can do that now, is to just pause for a couple of minutes and see if anyone has any questions or comments that I can respond to.
Yeah, I don't have any questions yet. I would like people to please participate. We depend on their participation, so please go into either the chat box or the questions box and post your questions or comments.
My hope is to have people raise questions and have comments that they'd like to make after each one of these slides.
Right, and that way we can get a real dialogue going. Okay, I've got a question for you. What do you mean what the therapist and counselor bring to the relationship? Would you please explain that more?
Well, if we assume, as I am proposing here, that the very foundation of any therapeutic process is the personal relationship between ourselves and our clients, we're talking about a human connection. That means that you and I are going to be entering that relationship with our own biases, with our own philosophy of life, our own approach to life, our own personal spirituality, our own political views, but also we're going to be entering that relationship with our own personal hang-ups, with our own personality, with the things in life about us that affect the nature of our relationship with other human beings, whether we happen to be people who tend to be controlling, whether we happen to be people who are shy, whether we happen to be people who are who tend to be competitive in relationships, whether we have difficulty being entering in an intimate way into relationships, whether we have trouble with empathy, all these normal things that, we all have some kind of hang-up or another, okay? All of that comes into our relationship with our clients. As I said, it's a face-to-face kind of thing. It's a real human relationship. They will feel us. They will experience us. And when we start trying to connect with them, we try to understand them, when we try to communicate with them, all this personal stuff will color the way we affect the relationship with our clients.
Okay, thank you. How often do you see or work with poor that have mental health issues?
I have trouble answering that because in some sense or another, I believe that we all have mental health issues. When it's a question of severity, and sure, the poor families that are disadvantaged, they're more vulnerable to the stresses of life, and because they're more vulnerable, we're more likely to see more severe mental health issues, issues of addiction, for example. But as far as I'm concerned, I would rather that we think about these families as, yes, they have mental health issues, but so do I. I also have my own particular hang-ups, my own particular difficulties in life, which will enable me to identify and relate to them. So I'm not putting them in another category of humanity. Are we ready to go to the next slide? Well, I'll try it. Identify with your client. Okay, this speaks right to the issue that we've been talking about. Okay. In terms of the use of our cells, I'm trying to operationalize that. And the first step, as I see it, is that we need to be able to identify with the people that we're going to be working with. Okay. So yeah, I spoke before about the kind of emotional distance between ourselves and our clients, cultural differences that will separate us from them, value differences, life experience differences. Okay. For us to be able to do the work that we need to do as therapists, we need to form develop a really intimate connection with our clients. So what am I saying? Well, identify through your common humanity. Okay, I'm pushing this really very hard. Okay, because what I'm saying here is that whoever we're dealing with, no matter how different they may appear from us, at the very core, they're human like we're human, and we need to see that, and we need to feel that. Okay, how does one do that? Okay, what I'm suggesting is that the way to relate to them through our differences is through our own woundedness and our own personal struggles. Okay. What does this require? I believe that what it requires is that we're able to, first of all, okay, be in touch with our own vulnerable humanity, yours and mine. Okay. And if we can take ownership of our own personal struggles in life and view those struggles as challenges to our own growth, okay, we don't have to then be allergic to looking at our own particular issues. If we can take ownership of our woundedness, then through that, when we're sitting with our clients, okay, we can be thinking to ourselves, this is another human being who is also wounded, who is also struggling with life like I am. Okay? And if that can create a a common ground for us to relate to one another, then that opens me up to them and hopefully then invites them to open themselves up to me. Okay? You know, now that is not meant to deny the uniqueness of the client's life experience. Okay, so the common human bond brings us together. The uniqueness of the client then becomes something that helps us to understand that particular person's life experience. Well, you know, our client is unique, but so am I, and so are you. Okay, so in identifying our own personal struggles with life, okay, our own personal journey and being in touch with that when we're sitting with our clients, then we can look at the client and relate to the client and be curious, okay, about this person's unique struggle in life and not put the client, this particular family, whatever their issues are, not put them in another category of human experience, but put them in our category of human experience. Now, I also believe that this isn't just a matter of understanding. I'm convinced that for us to make the kind of intimate connection with our clients that enables us to communicate with them, to understand them, okay, to gain their trust, that we have to put ourselves into a mindset, an emotional disposition where we're saying to ourselves, I care about this person. This person matters to me. Okay, within my role, within my professional role, okay, I care about this other human being, this particular family. Okay, well, you know, part of that process means that I have to be open. I myself have to be open. I have to allow myself to be vulnerable. But what does that mean? What that means is that I put myself in a mental and emotional disposition where I allow this family to touch me, in the sense of I allow them to touch my emotions. I allow them to trigger in me a sense of worry about them, concern about them. I even allow them to irritate me. Whatever it is that they're doing as human beings, I'm not putting a shield between us so that I'm not affected by them. If I enter into an intimate connection with them, I'm allowing them to affect me the way I would allow somebody else that I want to form a friendship with to affect me. That's going to be the medium through which I begin to understand who they are, where they're coming from, and how I may best be able to relate to them and to connect with them so that I can do the work of therapy. Okay, I would again invite any questions or comments on just this particular slide, if there are any.
Okay, I've got quite a few questions and comments coming in. Before we do that, though, do you want me to do the first poll, or would you rather wait?
No, go ahead with that.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Aponte has three polls here that we will be showing through the throughout the webinar. So I'm going to launch the first one. And this one is, what is your ethnic or racial background? African American, Latino, Latina, Native American, Caucasian, or other? So if you will please click your answers, we will go over those. I'll give it another minute or so to get, so everybody has a chance to respond. Okay, we're up to 72% response rate now. We'll give it another bit of time. And then we'll review the responses, and then I'll go to the questions and comments. Okay. I think we, it looks like it's tapering off here. So I will close the poll at this time and then show the results. Okay. Dr. Aponte, I'll read these off to you because I don't know whether you can see it.
No, I can't.
Of the 85% that answered, and that's out of 87 attendees, 20% are African American, 5% Latino, Latina, 69% Caucasian, and 5% other.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm hiding that poll now, and we will look at some of these other questions and comments. Remember too, Dr. Aponte, that some of these you might be going over later.
Okay.
These are what's come in. What are the strategies to engage the resistant participants?
Well, we are going to be touching on that in a number of the slides, but what I'm suggesting right here, that the very first strategy to deal with the resistant client, you know, quote unquote, is that they have to believe that we get them. They have to believe that we understand them. Okay? They have to believe that we genuinely care about them. And finally, they have to believe that we can make a difference in their lives. We will have to demonstrate within the session itself that we can help them make some kind of change. And we're going to talk about that in some detail. But what I presented here in this particular slide about identifying, okay, that really is it's a strategy, but it's a strategy that has to do with making the therapeutic process a human process where people feel our presence and feel our connection, so that then they can begin to trust us. If they don't trust us, they will not open up to us. If they don't open up to us, then whatever we do will be wasted.
Okay.
Next question.
Yes, here's another one. How would you address challenging the barriers in a counseling session? I may think as a counselor I'm building rapport, but the client may be expecting me, the counselor, to fail them.
May be expecting me, the counselor, to fail them?
Uh-huh. I guess the expectation would be that they wouldn't be able to help.
Yeah.
So even though the counselor thinks that they're really building a rapport.
I got it. You know, we all have experience in relationships with human beings, with other people in our lives. And I'm wanting us to take what we know about ourselves in relationships with people and bring that into the work that we're doing with these families, so that we see them as human beings and we understand that forming a relationship in which they will trust us is a process. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes sensitivity. And for us to be able to read them in such a way that they begin to believe that we see them and that we care, we really have to open ourselves up emotionally so that we can experience them. And we get to know them not just through what they tell us, but we begin to get to know them through what we experience of them in our relationship with them, so that we can understand them through ourselves, through our entire self, through our experience of them, and not just through external signs. Okay, then we open ourselves up to be able to intuit what's going on with people, and then we can respond to them from places that we generally are not conscious of. Okay, we pick up messages from people all the time that we're not aware of, okay? And we respond to that. And I am suggesting that as therapists, we need to train ourselves, and we need training, okay, that will allow us to be sensitive to what we experience with people and to learn how to interpret those experiences as communications so that when we speak to them, we speak from a place of genuine human empathy. Okay, that's the best that I can respond to that question. I think we should go on to the next slide.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. You know, in the previous one, I spoke about identification with our clients. Well, we also have to differentiate ourselves from our clients, and in my mind, the differentiation process is as important as the identification process. Okay. What do I mean by differentiation? Well, you know, it follows Murray Bowen's concept of it. But what it speaks to is that, you know, even as we attempt to form an intimate connection with our clients, we need to be grounded. Now this goes to D on this particular slide. Be grounded in your own identity and spirituality. And this particular theme is going to come up over and over again in today's discussion. For us to be able to open ourselves up, to be vulnerable to our clients, to take them in so that we can experience them and feel them, okay, we cannot do that and be in a position to interpret what we're experiencing so that we can then use it for their benefits. We cannot do that unless we're grounded in in our own lives. That means having a sense of our own identity. You know, who am I? What are my values? What am I striving for? What are the challenges that I'm facing? How am I dealing with those particular challenges? You know, I need to be grounded in my own life's journey so that this is something that is clear to me. It's distinct for me. Okay? It makes me unique in the world that I live in, and I'm invested in that so that I don't live through my clients. I have my own life, I have my own goals, and my feet are firmly planted in that journey of mine. That allows me to take the risk of opening myself up to someone who is sharing their own life experience, which may be so intense, okay, that for me to get into it and to become a part of it, it can be pretty overwhelming. And working with disadvantaged families, very often with a multitude of problems that they have, some very deep, profound needs that come out of deprivation in their lives, they can really pull at us if we open ourselves to them. You know, there's such a common thing of people who work with disadvantaged families, especially young people who are new in the field, that they get so involved that they lose themselves in working with the families, get overwhelmed, and after a while they burn out. Okay? Well, the secret to not burning out is that you're grounded within your own journey, in your own sense of self, even as you connect with them and open yourself up to them and to their experience. That, you know, the bottom line for that will be that and this is really important, you know, is that in that human connection that we make with our clients, the client must feel free, and you and I must feel free, okay? So that the client is free to make choices, good choices, bad choices, you know, and maybe not the choices that we think may be the best choices for them, but they need to have a sense of power within the relationship with us so that we are partnering with them. I don't care how devastated their lives are. I don't care what difficulties they're facing in life. I don't care how much of a failure they may experience themselves to be. They need to have a sense of they have control over themselves in the relationship that they have with us. Okay? That becomes the basis, a foundation from which they can build in order to make changes. And that is something that we can help create. But that means that we have to have enough security about ourselves that we can permit that freedom in them, even though we will have clear objectives about what we're trying to achieve, and we have a methodology and techniques that say this is what I need to be doing if I'm going to be of help to them, and we're committed to helping them, and we're wanting them to make good choices, and we're wanting them to make use of the resources that we're offering. Even with all that commitment that we have to being of help to them, they are free within the relationship that they have with us to accept or not, to choose this versus that. Okay? And that is something that we need to be aware of, and that is something that we need to facilitate and enable in the relationship with us. Okay? I'd like to open it up for questions and comments on that point.
Okay. See, this is these are still sort of coming in, so I'm not real sure where they are, but I'll just start here at the most recent. I work in the addictions field where several of my clients have co-occurring disorders. How can I help my clients in seeing the sincerity of empathizing with their experiences? I applied the identification and empathy in therapy. However, several of them are not used to people validating their personal experiences, thoughts, or feelings.
You know, given the kind of experience that particular person may have had, they're going to test us over and over and over again. And so that the establishment of trust should be viewed as a major task for us in the work with families and individuals coming from very difficult circumstances where they have been abused, they have been disappointed, they have been hurt, they have been lied to. Okay? People have failed them over and over again, and they have failed themselves. So they not only do not trust others, they don't trust themselves. It's hard for them to trust. Okay? This is question of establishing trust is one that is part of the therapeutic process from beginning until the time we end with them. Okay? This is not going to be something that we just work out in the first few sessions. We've got where we can assume we have a relationship when we have the trust. Even when they believe they trust us, okay, it'll be very easy for them, okay, to become suspicious and to not trust us again anywhere down the road where they think we don't quite get them or we didn't meet their expectations. This is a living, powerful, and critical issue in the relationship with these families that needs special attention on our part, and that's also why we need to have a certain sense of security about ourselves, okay, so that when they do communicate a lack of trust and they do question us, we don't take it personally and then shut down to protect ourselves from being hurt or disappointed by them. Okay? We need to have enough security, enough sense of ourselves that we can come back over and over again and meet the challenge of trying to gain their trust and maintain their trust. Are there other questions about this?
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay.
Let's see. How much self-disclosure do you think is appropriate in regards to one's own struggles, either financially or spiritually?
We know what I always say about self-disclosure is that self-disclosure is the most powerful intervention that you and I can make in the therapeutic process, okay? Because self-disclosure affects the very basis of the whole therapeutic process. Self-disclosure changes our relationship to our client. Once we reveal something about ourselves, whatever that may be, now they see us in a somewhat different way. Okay? That affects how they respond to us emotionally. So self-disclosure is something that we do with a lot of care. It needs to be considered an intervention. We need to be aware of, what are the issues that we're dealing with? What's the nature of our relationship with them? Where are we in the process of working with them? And what are we trying to achieve right now? And so do I believe that disclosing something about myself will facilitate the goal that I have at this particular moment in time? Well, if I believe it will, then I also have to be thinking about how do I deliver it, okay, and how do I present it so that it is most likely to achieve that particular goal. This is not something that we just gushes out of us, because we want to make them see us as human beings. That is too vague. That is, to me, that's irresponsible. Okay, this is an intervention. It needs to be quite clearly focused and tailored to the needs of the client at that particular moment in time. Okay, I'd like to go on to the next slide.
Okay, I do. Yeah, I've got plenty of other people with hands raised and other questions. So hopefully we can get to these all before the end of the session. But continue on, please. Thank you.
All right. Therapy is an experience. It's not a conversation. Okay? This is one of my favorite little expressions. The point of this here, and you should be getting this, certainly be getting this point by now, okay, is that when we sit down with our clients, we're not just having a conversation and exchanging ideas, okay? We're engaging with them about some critical issue in their lives, and we're entering into their lives. In fact, we should be entering into their lives. So as you can see here, number 3, personally engage the entire person of the client, the beautiful and ugly, the good and bad, the strong and weak. Okay, what I'm saying there is that is that we fully enter into their room, into their space, okay, and connect with that human being that's there. It doesn't mean we have to like all that we see or that we agree with all that we hear, but it does mean that we fully engage with them, remembering to stay connected with ourselves as distinct and separate people. Okay, we're going to be working within our personal experience of them, okay, in the therapeutic relationship. Well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that we're when we try to make an assessment of what's going on with them, okay, yes, we are listening to what they have to say, and we have good questions to present to them. And we're trying to get data, information, history, accounting of what's going on with them. And they can only tell us so much. They can only tell us what they're conscious of and aware of. Okay? When we're engaged with them, we're also going to be feeling them. We're also going to be sensing them. They're going to be affecting us. And because if we're really engaged with them emotionally, they're going to be affecting us in so many ways that we're going to find ourselves thinking certain thoughts, having certain emotions in reaction to them, having certain associations that will be going through our heads as we're with them. All of this is rich data that comes to the surface for us as a result of our engaging with them. And it's data that we need to be able to sift through and interpret that says to us, who is this person on the other side of me? He or she is smiling, but I don't trust this person. He or she appears to be very friendly, but why am I so uptight with them? Okay, he or she doesn't seem to be saying anything. I don't know if anything is going on there. They don't want to talk to me, but at the same time, I'm feeling a certain warmth. Am I picking this up from them? Maybe they are wanting me to be there with them and to stay with them, and they're not really shutting me out, even if they cannot talk. Okay, my point is that there's a lot going on between us and our clients, and all of that is data for us to be interpreting and understanding and deciding how are we going to work with this in order to be able to make a difference in their lives. The other thing in terms of therapy being an experience is that when you have a couple or you have a family, that we need to be working with them in such a way that encourages them to interact with each other when they're there with us. Okay, we want them to, when they're sharing with us part of their lives, part of what they're struggling with, we want them to experience that with each other even as they're telling us about it, so that we will ask one to respond to the other one's question, to the other one's remarks, to the other one's emotional response. We want them living their issues, okay, in our presence so that we can then enter into that experience and feel what it's like to be in that family. Okay? It's a real human experience that we need to be able to enter into, at the same time be able to stand outside of, okay, so that we can observe it and interpret it and make decisions about how we're going to work with what we see. That goes back to our being able to have a sense of ourselves as separate persons and as professionals that gives us a perspective on whatever it is that we're experiencing with them, and that which is the raw material that we're going to be working with. Okay, I'll open it up for comments or questions.
Okay, a couple people have raised their hands, so I'm going to see if they actually mean it.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of times they're just by mistake. Mr. Iser, I'm going to unmute you now. Let's see if we can hear your question. Mr. Iser? Okay. No, he has a written question here instead, so I think that's what we'll go with. What is the role of the therapist in meeting the social, economic, and other basic needs of the client?
You know, part of it depends on our professional place. You know, it depends on what kind of clinic or agency or hospital we're working from. And most of the work with disadvantaged families is done by people who are working in institutions and not people who are in private practice. What are the resources that particular institution or organization has that they have to offer the client? If we really do have resources available to us within our professional role, well then that's something that we're going to make available to them, of course. But when it comes to working with disadvantaged families, we really have to be thinking of them in the context of their social ecology. Okay, and for me, what that means is that we have to consider not only their emotional state, not only of individuals, not only the relationships of the people within the family, but we have to be thinking about their relationships with the resources in their community. Okay? People who are living in impoverished situations, in disadvantaged situations, because of that, they tend to be more dependent on community resources and people who have their own wealth and personal resources. So that when it comes to a school, for example, they tend to have to bring their children to the public school that's in their community. They're not able to say, I don't like the school, I'm going to bring have my child go to some very expensive private school in another state. Okay. We as counselors and therapists should have relationships and be prepared to develop relationships with the resources in the community so that we can activate them and mobilize them, that they too will serve as part of the solution to whatever families bring to us. Okay, so that we're trying to make an assessment not only about the individuals and about the family relationships, but with these particular families, we need to be making an assessment about where they are, okay, in their communities and how their communities are contributing to their problems and how their communities are resources to helping them solve their problems.
Okay.
Next question.
Yes. During the therapeutic process, how do you engage a family in regard to their individual concerns?
Well, you know, we have to make a judgment. Is the family situation one in which it is safe for the individual to express their own personal concerns? You know, ideally, okay, I would like to always to be able to view the family as a potential resource for that person, so that if we have control of the process, now this is different from control of the people. Okay, we have to be able to create a structure within the therapeutic process that says, I am making this to the extent that I can, making this a safe place for people to be vulnerable, for people to open up what they're struggling with, what their pain is. Okay? And if people can have that trust in me that says, okay, this guy, he does get us, he does understand us, he is concerned about us, and he also knows how to handle conflict, he knows how to handle crying, he knows how to handle anger, and we can trust opening ourselves up with him, because he will be able to help us make use of whatever we communicate to begin to solve our problems. If they don't trust our ability to manage the process, then the individual cannot take the risk of opening up. But we certainly also need to always have the option of separating individuals from the rest of the family so that they can then communicate their own personal stories or issues to us in a way that that allows, where they feel that, you know, we will respect the confidentiality and that we will attend to their particular needs, but then we have to then figure out with them how do then we bring that back into the family situation so that by seeing an individual, we're not separating them from the family, but we're reconnecting them with the family in a way that is helpful to them. Okay, so we go on to the next slide.
Yeah, it's up to you. We also have the other poll questions.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. This next poll is just asking how often you work with the disadvantaged families. Quite a lot, some, little, or not at all. Okay, and while people are responding to that, let me get to one other question. For those poor clients who find themselves chemically dependent, how can you motivate them towards purpose and possibility?
Towards what? I didn't get that.
For chemically dependent people.
Yeah, how can you motivate them to?
Just the possibilities of what they can achieve, I guess, the possibilities in therapy, whatever the goals are.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to be addressing that very soon in one of these slides, but,
Sure.
but you know, what it comes down to and is that we're looking for signs of success. We're looking for any sign that they can make a difference in their lives, and it can be the smallest possible thing. You know, in fact, I'm thinking now about a young woman that I was seeing last night, who said to me, you know, I intended that the year 2012 would be the year that I would be sober, and you know, and obviously I have failed, you know, numerous times already. And then she said something of interest, which was, she said, but you know something, I've been sober more days this year than I've been using, which is different from what I've been doing the last several years. Well, you know, that was a moment that my response to her was, you know, that's a victory. You know, the fact that you're doing better than you did in the past, and that that you feel like you're achieving something, okay, that is something for you, yes, to take some credit for, and for us to acknowledge as a step in the direction that you want to go in. Okay? And that was a small thing, but she smiled. It seemed to make a difference to her, and I wanted to support and affirm any step that she took in the direction of the change that she wanted to achieve for herself. And these can be small ones or they can be large ones. But my point is that we're going, I believe, we need to be grabbing on to acknowledging, recognizing, supporting, facilitating whatever change a person can make, however small that may be, whether it's within the process, in the interview that we have with them, the session that we have with them, or something that they accomplished outside. We build on that.
Okay, and I will now, I'm going to close the poll now, and we will share the results. Dr. Aponte, of the 81% of the 89 attendees today, 72% said that they work with disadvantaged families quite a lot. So that blew everybody else out of the water with a 72% response. 17% said some, 7% said little, and 4% said none at all.
Okay.
So that's a response to that one.
Well, hopefully then what we're doing here is relevant to what they're doing. Okay. Let's go on to the next slide then, objectives. I've been talking a lot about the disposition that the therapist or counselor should have in terms of how they relate to their clients. What I'm moving more towards now are the technical things that we need to be doing in order to begin to make a difference in the use of ourselves. Okay. Number 6 here is relate to their immediate worry and pain. Some therapists worry about labeling clients and pathologizing them. I do not believe that people will open themselves up to us, that they will trust us unless they know that we have a real feel for how bad things are for them. They need an opportunity to talk about it. They need an opportunity to share it. They need an opportunity to test us to see whether we understand what it is that they're going through. Even though we may come from very different life experience, very different place, okay, they need to know, they need to believe, okay, that, I can trust you with my brokenness, and that you will get it. You will have some sense of it, some feel for it. And if you do, then we can talk about what can be done about it, because then you'll have some sense of why this is so difficult for me, because I need to know that you get that. Now, not only how broken I am, but how challenging my life is, how difficult my life is, and how hard it is for me to make changes. Otherwise, I'm going to feel ashamed. Otherwise, I'm going to cover it up. I'm just going to dose out to you what I think you can handle. And if the client is in that place, they're not really trusting us with themselves, and that limits our ability to make a difference in their lives. Okay. Number 7 here, set it in the context of the ecosystem, the individual, the family, and the community. I think I have already spoken to that, so I'm not going to say anything more about that. Number 8, I highlight that and identify the core underlying wound and brokenness and work with it in all contexts. This is a big point when working with disadvantaged families. They very often not only have all sorts of problems. They don't just come with one discrete problems. What also often happens is that they're coming in with crisis after crisis. And it's very easy that session to session we find ourselves putting out fires. If we just get caught up in that content, okay, we will go round and round in a merry-go-round, and we will not move forward. Okay? What we need to be doing in a major task for us is to be able to identify what is the core dynamic here, the underlying dynamic. Okay, they are broken in a particular way that then makes them vulnerable to this, that, and the other problem that comes up. Okay, situations will come up that are problematic to them, that they can't solve. But there always is a particular theme underlying all of those situations that says, well, this is the way they cope with things. This is why they get themselves into trouble. This is why it's difficult for them to solve this problem, that problem, and the other. We need to get that theme, okay, identified as early as we can in our work with them. And then when they present new circumstances, new situations to us, we're looking through that for that particular theme, so that when we address the particular circumstance that they're presenting to us, we're remembering, okay, when I speak to that, I need to that circumstance, I need to also speak to that underlying theme. For example, you know, if this particular client always expects to fail, has a victim mentality, then whatever they bring up, they present themselves in a sense of helplessness. Okay? Then we're likely to see that no matter what they present to us. So we will be thinking of ourselves when we work with them, okay, how can I relate to this person in such a way that they begin to experience themselves as, I own this problem, I own this issue, I have the possibility and power to make a difference. So that we're then, in terms of our interventions, we're looking to work with them in such a way that they experience our intervention as something that empowers them, as something that helps them to make a difference in whatever it is that they're presenting, so that they don't just see us as saving them or somebody else as saving them, but they're experiencing themselves as, all right, I was able to make a difference in this situation. I may have needed a lot of support, a lot of encouragement, and so on, but I was instrumental in making a difference. And we're going to be looking for that particular underlying theme, okay, in every situation that they present to us. Okay, and to the, I'm looking at number 9 now. Address change in their present reality. Okay. If we can address an issue right in the session itself, in our whether we're having it in their home or in our office right now, and they're presenting something, and we can help them address it and in a way that's different, in a way that's new, in a way that feels to them like, gee, I'm doing this a little bit differently, a little better, okay, then it has more of an impact because it's an immediate reality. It's not just something that we're talking about, okay, and having a conversation about. It is something that I am experiencing. So to the extent that they can experience a change, that change will take. That's also why it's helpful to talk with people, give them assignments, homework assignments, something that comes up in the session with us that we can then, with them, frame it in a way that says, well, look, if you can do this now or approach that in a particular way, you know, and that will be a significant step in the work that we're doing. And if we can make that very specific, and they can go home and then do that particular thing and experience success, okay, that will go in deep. That will feel like, oh, it's real. I can do, even if I fail the day after tomorrow, okay, if I was able to do something and experience a change, okay, that is something that then I can work with and build upon. And we'll be talking even more about that. Okay, and number 10, aim for a palpable change in the now that you would build on from session to session. That's along the same theme. I look at every single session that I do. Okay, this is another chapter in the book, and I'm hoping, I'm working towards that this particular session, in it, they will experience something new, something that will give them hope, okay, and that every session they'll have a similar kind of experience, no matter how small it may be, that it be another positive experience that they can build upon. Okay, I'd like to open it up.
Okay. I have had a request for references and other books that you might recommend on this topic. I will send that to you in an email afterwards, and when you respond with any of your suggestions, I will then forward that to all the attendees. so we can do that after the session.
Okay, good.
Let's see here. Okay. Is it advisable to disguise self-disclosure in phrases like, it has been my experiences that people in this situation have, ...
You know, my preference always is to make the personal self-disclosure the last resource. Okay? Yes, if we can use our experience and present it in such a way that it just indicates that we understand something that they're presenting, and it's not a confession that we've been there. I prefer that, so that then they relate to what's being communicated rather than they're relating to our particular person when it comes to self-disclosure. I would support that.
Okay, thank you. And we have a few others here. I work with homeless families and agree with what's been stated, but how much time would you consider for families to begin to make positive changes?
I look for families to experience positive changes in the very first session that we have. You know, if we can, that first session is a critical session. You know, unfortunately, in many agencies, people get swamped with forms and questionnaires, and as if we're now negotiating a contract, and we'll begin our work in our second meeting. To me, that very first contact is the one that's going to engage them in the process and make them want to come, should be something that engages them in the process and makes them want to come back a second time. So I see that first contact with them as a time to begin gaining their trust. And again, what does gaining their trust mean? Well, it means that, whoa, I do understand what you're telling me. Okay, I have listened to you. I hear you. I'm feeding back to you what I hear in such a way that you see that, oh, this person really gets me, and I want to do that in such a way that the client says, well, not only does this person get me, this person is really interested, is really curious, okay, in me, me in particular. I'm not just another diagnosis, okay, or another category. Okay, this person gets my issue, and this person is interested in me. This person cares about what I'm saying in a very particular and personal way. And if in that very first session I can help them see something that they hadn't seen before, put something together in their heads that they hadn't quite put together before, if I can help them see something that they can do, however small that may be, that will make a difference for them so that it gives them a little spark of hope, I want that to happen in the very first session that I have with them. Okay, that they walk out of that session with a sense of, okay, we've really gotten started. Things are beginning to happen, and they can see some vague light, but some light, okay, is out there that they can walk towards. Okay, it begins immediately.
Okay. I have somebody here with their hand raised, which indicates they want to be unmuted. So we're going to try that and see if we can hear her. Okay, Sonia, can you ask your question, see if we can hear you? Yeah, not working. A lot of people don't have computer microphones, or their microphones are weak. So, Sonia, that's not working. Please type in your question. Okay, Dr. Aponte, do you want to take on a couple more questions Do you want
Well,
the last poll,
you know,
or would you rather just continue on right now?
If Sonia's writing her question, can we,
Yeah,
is she writing it out right now?
I don't know. I don't see it. I usually see it
Okay.
once it's been completed.
All right. Okay. Yeah, go on with the next poll then.
Okay. Okay. In this poll, we're asking if you feel that your cultural, political, and spiritual values influence your counseling and therapy. We'd like to know whether you feel that that is happens a lot, some, little, or you're not sure if it influences. Okay, let's see, we're up to, we'll be hitting 70% here in just a second. No. Oh, here's Sonia's question in the meantime. People are still answering the poll. When dealing with this community, how do you relate to the fact that they are listening but taking in all, wait a minute, when do you relate to the fact that they are listening, taking in? Oh, okay. When dealing with this community, how do you relate to the fact that they're listening, but they're still depending on your help instead of making the choice themselves?
You know, there's a space that we can get ourselves into, and deliberately so, you know, where we try to remain grounded within ourselves, centered within ourselves, excuse me, and not get so caught up in our eagerness to move them, to inspire them, to affect them, that then we can't feel the level of activity that's coming from the other side. Because if we can stay grounded within ourselves, even as we're interacting with them, and are conscious of how much is coming from them, how engaged are they, how active are they, okay, then we can gauge our interaction with them in such a way that we quiet our voice, manage our power and influence in the interaction, so that we can hear their voice, so they can feel themselves in their interaction with us, and feel themselves in such a way that without their being conscious of it, okay, they will know that we're moving together, and the counselor is not moving out ahead of them with their just trailing us. Okay, so you know, I don't know if I can really picture that for you. Okay, but it is staying in a certain kind of consciousness of my connection with this other human being, so that I am allowing myself to feel their level of activity, of interest, of power, of influence in our interactions, and so whatever I do and whatever I say, okay, always allows room for them. Okay, so that, you know, if they're laying back, okay, we're going to be responding in a very quiet way, okay, where we become inquisitive, we become interested, and we stop pushing. We can even speak to, our need to hear from them. Okay, and out of a sense of curiosity and interest rather than pushing, so that then they're put in a position where there is space for them to move into, and they feel an invitation to move into that space with us in a way that feels safe for them, however afraid they may be of taking responsibility for the process. Okay, I'm talking here about something that happens between us, so that even if they cannot and they're not prepared to take initiative in their lives outside, I want to have a relationship with them that um, that cultivates, a level of activity between them and us, okay, so that they become more active and not just dependent upon us. Okay, so we go on. Oh, did you get the results?
Yes, I have the results here, and I'm going to share them now. Do your cultural, political, and spiritual values influence your counseling or therapy? 27% said yes, it does influence it quite a bit. 35% said some. 33% said that it influences their counseling and therapy just a little, and 5% aren't sure.
All right, I'm, and what I am suggesting is that, our values, our outlook towards life, our personal values, our spirituality, that inevitably influences the work that we're doing. To me, the question is not whether it influences. The question is whether we exercise a level of control over how much of that we communicate and how actively we incorporate those values into the work that we're doing. So I'm talking about conscious versus unconscious use of that part of ourselves. I think it's always present. I think it's in the air. It's inevitable that it's going to get communicated. Okay, and the question is more one of whether I am conscious that I'm communicating it, and do I really want to communicate it, and how do I want to communicate it, versus somebody who says, well, I don't think I'm doing it. Well, you are. Okay, and they're picking up on it in some way or another. It's going to be built into how you relate to them, in how you evaluate them, and in the kind of interventions that you use in order to move them to make changes in their lives. It's just built into the person that we are, and it's built into our models of therapy. Okay, let me go on to the next slide. Well, this one I've been talking about already to a large extent, but I want to emphasize one particular concept here, which is the concept of free will. People in therapy very often sort of poo-poo that. They say, well, the problems that our clients have, the family has, this individual has, this is a disease, this is an illness, they have no control over it. Well, they may not have control over certain aspects of their issues and their problems, and I take that for granted. And it may be more severe, the limitation may be more severe in one situation versus another. However, everyone has some degree of control over their lives. I worked in psychiatric hospitals for a number of years, working with psychotic patients, and I've seen people who were, talking to the TVs in the lounge, and and they may start to misbehave and begin to bully another patient. You know, one of the psychiatric aides will come in and say, "Hey, Charlie, cut that out." And the patient heard them. The patient was respectful of that psychiatric aide and immediately stopped. They had control over that behavior. They still believe that the TV was talking to them, and they still may be attributing some kind of intention to the other patient next to them, the one that they were beginning to fight with, but they had the ability to stop fighting, to stop bullying. Okay, my point is simple. The point is that if we're going to build on clients' strengths, okay, I want us to identify what can they control in their lives. You know, AA has the whole thing about, you know, you change what you can change, and you learn to accept what you cannot change. Okay. Well, the point is to identify what do they have control over that's related to the issue that they're bringing in. It's a critical thing, as far as I'm concerned, to identify that and to work with that. Work with the control that they can exercise over their lives and over the issues that they're presenting. Build on that, build your therapy around that, and you're working with their own strength and their own motivation. Okay? And that will get you further than anything else that they have to present and offer us as something to work with. In terms of cultural and spiritual resources, you know, I'll tell you, in my experience, working with disadvantaged families, working with cultural minorities, racial minorities, you know, over and over again, I find people who are more religious, more spiritual than the general population tends to be. Certainly than therapists tend to be. Therapists tend to be more secular, okay, in their thinking. But our clients coming from particular ethnic backgrounds and racial backgrounds, they very often recognize a God. They very often pray. They very often attend a church. They have a faith community. If they do, and to whatever extent they do, what I'm saying is, if you find that that's part of their lives and that's a real part of their lives, work with it. Don't be scared of it. Don't avoid it. Consider it a resource, and think about how then can we use that resource to help enable them to take control of their lives and to make a change in their lives. I think it's really a great resource that a lot of therapists are very uncomfortable dealing with. You don't have to buy into their religion. You don't have to buy into their spirituality. But if you see that it is a positive, a potential positive resource, okay, mine it, work with it, use it. It's part of who they are. Okay. Of course, the final point on this slide is the power of family and social resources. You know, it's very easy, particularly with when you're dealing with addictions. It's very easy to get caught up in dealing with the individual person who's addicted and not see them as part of a family. Okay? Families are resources. My experience over and over again is that when somebody is struggling with an addiction, the extent to which we can engage family with them in a healthy way, okay, it just becomes a powerful resource and a powerful source of movement and support for the person who's struggling with an addiction. Okay, I'd like to open it up for questions at this point.
I have one person who typed in a question. He was one of those we were trying to get audibly before.
Okay.
The question you describe, the approach you describe for developing a therapeutic relationship with the client are the basic traits of an effective counselor: unconditional positive regard, empathy, genuineness, etc. If this is true, how do you differentiate your approach from that of any competent therapist? And he says he doesn't mean this to be a negative comment.
Well, you know, my experience with a lot of the language of you know, of positive regard and acceptance and empathy is that it doesn't break down the mechanisms that we use in order to do that. Okay? Because, you know, to have a sense of I need to empathize with my client, I need to feel with my client. Well, that's fine. That we all should be doing that. What I am trying to do is to speak to, you know, well, what does it take for us to get to that place? And what I'm emphasizing here is the work that we do on ourselves. Okay, and I'm going to get, you know, well, I think we'll have time for that. I will, I'm going to speak in more detail about it, but basically what it is this, is that in training therapists and in training and in supervising them, okay, what I'm looking for is to help therapists come to know themselves. These are my personal issues. This is my personal story and how it contributes to my issues. This is how my issues, how they affect my life today, how they affect my relationships with people, how they affect the way I think about life and about my clients' issues. Okay? These issues of mine, they limit my ability to empathize, to relate to understand, to be effective in such and such a way. My own life experience enables me to relate to them in a particular way, however difficult and painful that may be. I want the person who is in training to be able to know themselves that well and to be able to reach for those aspects of themselves that have to do with their life's journey, to have it accessible to them so that then they can use it. So that my emphasis is a training that starts with training the therapists to know themselves and to learn how to work with themselves. Okay? Much of the training that goes on around the use of self and around the person of the therapist has to do, on the one hand, with helping therapists resolve their issues, which is something that I certainly support. Okay? I'm emphasizing the use of our own personal struggles as resources in the work that we're doing with clients. Right? And I'm emphasizing developing not only insight, but developing a certain discipline so that we're able to use our own life experience, our own personal values, our own personal dispositions, our own personal struggles, that we're able to use them in a very conscious and specific way in order to form relationships, understand our clients, and intervene with them. So it is a training of self. It is an emphasis on that. So I'm trying to take it another level beyond what at least I've learned over the years about empathy and understanding and empathic relationships. Okay? So we'll go on to the next slide. Well, here we are. Prepare yourself, training the person of the therapist. Right? You know, the kind of training that I do some teaching at Drexel University's Couple and Family Therapy program, and what we do with the first year students is that we have a couple of classes, and what we start with is we ask them to identify what I call their signature themes. What I say to them is, look, we all have our particular issues. No one escapes that. And there's a history to those particular issues, and we live with these issues on a day-to-day basis, and they influence everything that we do. Okay? If you're going to be a therapist, you need to get in touch with that. Okay? You need to bring that to consciousness, to awareness, and not only that, accept the fact that you are human. Learn to accept the fact, okay, and that your personal struggles are part of your being a human person, and not only is it part of your being a human person, but that this is your personal challenge that will help you to grow and develop as a human being. I take a positive perspective on the kinds of issues that we struggle with and work with in our lives. Okay. This is a philosophical perspective that I have, but it's also something that I use in a very practical way in working with students. The first reaction, of course, that people have is to say, you know what, I'm supposed to reveal my issues in front of you know, my colleagues here. I say, well, you know, to whatever extent you want to. I just think it's going to be to your benefit if you're able to talk about it, conceptualize it, get some feedback on it, and you will find that people will be understanding of you and supportive of you, and you won't have to then, you yourself will not have to suppress your own stuff, deny your own stuff. You'll be able to allow yourself to face it and to engage with your issues in a positive way. Well, my experience is that once students start to, they take turns. They have to write it up, and then they sit down with me and my co-leader in the class, and they talk about their signature theme. You know, what is it? What's the history behind it? Where am I today with it? Once they do that, then we invite the students to give feedback. What usually happens? What usually happens is that one student after another will say, oh, I thought I was the only one with that. Oh, I recognize my struggle in what you just said. You know, I'm going through something similar. I've been through something similar. Because what I request of the other students is not for them to try to analyze any further what the presenter did, but to share what of the presenter's experience resonated with their own life experience, and for them to share that consistently. Okay, what comes up is that the presenter does not feel alone, that they find that other people have similar experiences, other people can resonate with what they're going through, and then they begin to relax with their own issues. And the more people present, the more people get comfortable talking about their particular issues, and they see themselves as, wow, you know, we're all part of this human race. We're all sisters and brothers together, struggling with similar issues. They get comfortable with the fact that that struggling with our own issues is a normal part of life. It helps each one of the students to be more accepting of themselves. It also teaches the students to begin to relate to somebody else's issues through their own issue, which is what I'm working very hard. This is what I talk, when we talk about empathy, I say empathy begins with empathy towards yourself and your own struggles, and through that understanding of yourself, through that acceptance of your own humanity, then you're going to be able to relate to the other person's struggle in life, and particularly the goal is ultimately that you're able to do that with your clients. And you're going to have 10, 12, 13 other students that you have practiced doing that with, which then prepares you to deal with a variety of different clients who appear to be very different from you, very often in their race, in their cultural backgrounds, in the class itself. And that prepares you to empathize from a genuine sense of, yes, I know what it's like because I am human also. Even though you may not be saying that with your clients, in the classroom you get a chance to do that. Okay? That is knowing yourself in a very distinct way. And then part of the training, of course, is this, and this is a critical piece of it, okay, is that I want students to get so comfortable and so aware of their own issues and what's going on inside of them, okay, that when they're in session, right in session itself, they have all of this information available to them. They have their own story available to them. They have their own issues available to them. They have their own emotions available to them. They have their own sense of woundedness available to them. So that then this becomes a resource for them that helps them to resonate with their clients, so that then they can understand their clients, they can connect with their clients, okay, they can care about their clients, and they also have some insight into, boy, what does it take for me to change? I've been struggling with my own stuff. I understand how hard it is. I have some understanding of what helps me to succeed in dealing with my issues that teaches me something about what they're going through, so that then I can monitor what they're going through what I know about myself. And also I have a little bit of information and understanding from what my fellow students went through that I can also access. It's inside of me that helps me then as a reference library, emotional reference library, to relate to what my clients are presenting. So that when I get into that session, that work with my client, I bring all of myself in there. My emotional life, my own history, my racial background, my ethnic background, my own personal values, my own spirituality. I bring that into the process in a conscious way, and I'm able to make use of it. I can choose to make use of it in a very directed manner within the framework of whatever therapeutic approach that I have. That gets to the mastery of self, okay? But it does take, of course, and what I'm encouraging the students to do is to commit to self-acceptance and personal growth. Commit to working on your issues as a lifelong process, because this is a normal process, part of life. If you can do that, it will help you with the differentiation process, as well as help you with the empathic process. Well, we can open it up for questions.
Okay, I have 3 people with their hand raised, so we're going to try this out again. This is Angela. Angela, I just unmuted. Hear you?
Okay.
Yes, we can. Yes, please ask your question.
My question is it when you are in the preparation of training a person to be a therapist, is it really the necessary for the client to be able to see more of that empathy or sympathy that you have towards them, or is it better to have some of a reserve about some of your emotions?
You know, what needs to happen is that I should be able to, I should have enough mastery of myself that I'm able to decide how much empathy, how much sympathy, how much caring, how much emotion, what kind of emotion I want to share with them. Again, this is an intervention. This is not just a general, I like you, I care about you, you know, I'm here with you. This is much more than that. It's a much more sophisticated process than that. This is to say, okay, you know, how much, what does this person need at this time in terms of my being empathic, my communicating my empathy? I may internally feel, you know, 8 or 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, but I may decide that what they need to hear from me is 3 and not 8 or 9. Okay? So this is an intervention, and I should be aware of it, and I'm communicating it as an intervention with a particular purpose. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does. My field currently is I am a substance abuse therapist. And I do understand a lot of the things that my clients are going through, but I am not able to empathize with everything that they're going through. I can sympathize with them, but I am not always able to empathize with them because where their life may have taken them down a certain road, my life has not. So that's basically one of the issues sometimes that I struggle with, because I really understand how, you know, they're having a struggle right now. They are really going through something. But I wonder, are my clients seeing that empathy side of me, or are they seeing that sympathy side of me?
Well, you know, this is not about agreeing with them, and this is certainly not about in any way communicating that whatever they're doing is okay. You know, it is basically trying to get into their shoes so that I can get some understanding of what they're experiencing, and that I am able to communicate some understanding and caring about their struggle enough so that they have some trust in me. But there will need to be, in all therapy, there needs to be a certain degree of tension in the relationship, because they are in one place and we are in another. Okay? And we know that they're not going to make it unless they move in a certain direction. Okay? And they're going to struggle against that because they want to change, but they're not ready to change. Okay? And so there needs to be a healthy tension between us that they can tolerate and that we can tolerate, and that generates and facilitates change rather than it discourages people.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have somebody else who has his hand raised, and let me find him. Okay, Gary, you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you now. Let's see if we can hear you.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you very well.
Okay. Can you give an example of finding the point of power?
Well, an example would be I have a client who's addicted, and she's confessing to me that she is using, that she is shooting up. This is a real example. Okay? But she's hiding it from her parents. They know she has a problem with drugs. They don't know how serious it is. Okay? Now, you know, if she can trust me enough to share that with me, and I'm thinking she's very isolated in her addiction. She feels very guilty about it. She doesn't want to give it up, and she's afraid that if she confesses it to her parents how bad it is, they're going to insist that she give it up. Okay, if I can reassure her and say, look, I'm going to meet with you and your parents, and if you can tell them what you're doing, and I'm going to support you in saying that you're not ready to stop it, okay, at this point, but you don't want to be alone with it, and if I can get them to trust me, and so that they understand and be supportive of you, I think that'll be a big step for you because you'll get out of your isolation. If I believe that she can take that step, that's a point of where she can exercise the power of her own free will that says, all right, I think I can do this with your assurance and with your support. Okay? So then let's go ahead and take that step.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's go on. I think we're getting close to the end here. Well, actually, we've been talking about it. This is what I've done is I've separated. I've made a distinction about training versus supervision. Okay, in the training that we do, you really have to have. If you're going to do the training, the model that I just described, with the 12 or 13 students, and they each present their particular issues, and they get feedback from us so that they understand it better, they nail it down, they feel supported by us, they feel supported by the other students, and then they begin to incorporate that into their clinical work. Okay, that's done in an environment where students do sign a paper that says the information that we get in here we keep, stays within the classroom, it stays among us, and we do not share personal information about anybody else with anyone else in our lives or certainly in the school. Okay. One of the things that I didn't bring up, which I want to make a real big point of here, is that as part of the training, this is only a first step. What we move to is to have them then bring videotapes of their clinical work so that then we can look at the clinical work and then relate what they've learned about themselves to how they work with their clients. And we look at the videos, we help them see themselves and their issues as they show up in their work with their clients, and then we try to coach them on how they can use what they bring personally to the process in a positive way. And finally, we have actors who play role-play families, and do a very convincing job of it, and we live supervise them so that we have the students identify their issues, and then we have them work with these actors, and then we coach the students in the supervision on how to use themselves to relate to the client, to try to understand the client, to make interventions that are helpful to the client, we try to train them to put what they learned about themselves in practice, to incorporate it into their professional role as a therapist. Okay, that's critical. This is not just about looking and examining my belly button. This is about being trained to apply what I learn about myself to all aspects of therapy that gets incorporated and integrated into my particular model of therapy. Okay, I want to go to the last, to the next slide, which is supervision. What we train the people who are supervising, we say to them, your priority is not the student's personal development. In fact, that's not your job at all. Your job is to supervise them in their work with clients. So that's your focus. And it's not your business to ask them personal questions about their life experiences or their personal issues. Your focus is, who's the client? What's the client's issue? What does the client need from this particular supervisee, who's the therapist, and then help the therapist use themselves in an effective way. And it's for you to look for what you know about this person, what they convey to you about themselves, the student, that then they can use in a positive way to relate to the client, to understand the client, to intervene with the client. And if the student has a personal issue that comes up around their work with the client, your responsibility is to focus on how they can use that in the context of doing therapy, either how to maintain control of it or use it in an active, positive way. It is not for you to do therapy with them. It is not for you to try to help them resolve it. If they need that kind of help, you refer them out to get personal help. So the training focuses on the student. The supervision focuses on the case. Okay, and that is a boundary that we try to make very clear for supervisors. Okay. I think we're to sum up today's presentation. Number one, to be personally present with your clients, to connect to the common humanity as you relate to them through their uniqueness, to engage actively with them in the full context of their world, family, and community, to stay on the core woundedness, the core issue, underlying issue, no matter what the context is, while you're working with their strengths in the present moment. And again, the reminder to remain grounded in your own journey, even as you're engaging very personally and actively with your client. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. If there are more questions or comments, I'll be glad to entertain them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aponte. We have a few more questions, but I have a feeling that you've already reviewed most of this information. It says, at any time you are working in the therapeutic setting, how important is it for the provider to master themselves?
Well, what I'm simply saying is that, you know, this is the first step of becoming a therapist, is to work on developing that self-mastery. The techniques and the models of therapy that we use, they get added on and built upon our personal mastery of self.
Okay,
Yeah,
and I have one other person who has their hand raised. We'll see if this works, and this will be the last question then. Angelica, are you available? Ms. Davis? Here, let's try this. Ms. Davis, can we hear you? Okay, I don't think that's working then. So I think at, okay, how do we know if when, for help? Somebody says, how do we know if when we ask for help, is that a betrayal? I don't know. Oh, in the sense of disclosure.
Okay, you have to repeat it to me because I didn't get it.
Yeah, no, it's in two parts here. How do we know when we ask for help? Is that a betrayal in the sense of disclosure?
When we ask for help, who's asking for help?
The counselor.
Asking for help from?
Another, I would assume another counselor or supervisor, somebody. They're just concerned about disclosure.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things that I also mentioned is that the supervisor is also a person of the supervisor, and there needs to be we do need to know who the supervisors are, who the consultants are, and we need to know whether we can trust them. And in training supervisors, you know, I do exactly the same thing we're talking about here in terms of training therapists. I train supervisors at another level in terms of using themselves. When we need help, we need to be as cautious as our clients are in disclosing any part of ourselves to the person that we're asking the help from. You know, all I can say to you is yes, you know, beware, be cautious, test the person out. We don't go sharing all of ourselves, you know, indiscriminately, because yes, we can be hurt professionally and personally.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, Dr. Aponte, at this time I'm going to take back the screen. So just click on that box in the middle of your your screen here. And I want to thank everybody for attending. Look for an email from me before the end of the day today, and I'll have some materials in there, and then more as they become available. So thank you all. When you get the email, please fill out the evaluation